Hello, my name is Jim Lee, and I'm so glad that you are joining me today. Well, this is, when I look around, this is Advent at this point in time, but Advent is, I would say, year-round, especially the way that we're doing it. We're looking at it from a mystical point of view. So Advent is a season in which we're preparing for something. We're making plans for the birth of Jesus. But we're not going to do it from the traditional way. We're coming at it from a more spiritual way, from a mystical way of preparing for the birth of the Christ. And as we prepare, that's a journey. But on a spiritual level, it's a journey that is two ways. We are readying ourselves for the Christ to be born in us. We're ready to receive the divine. We're ready to receive a new awakening to the truth of who we are. So we are preparing for it, but also we're ready to receive it. And I want to go back to, I think it's the book of John, first chapter. And there's a strange character that comes on the scene. His name is John the Baptist. And John the Baptist is preaching, and he says, "Prepare ye the way, prepare the way." Now, some people look at that as, hey, you got to get ready for Jesus and, repent, turn away from your sins and all of that. That is one very logical way to look at it. However, how we're looking at it is open up your heart and prepare on a mystical level the way to usher in love, to look at the presence of the divine in and through us. Prepare means to get ready, to open up for this two-way communication. So how do we make this two-way communication with the divine? We're preparing, but also we're opening up. So symbolically, when you look at the birth of Jesus, Jesus is our master teacher and wayshower, and he was teaching us from the very beginning with his birth how to get in touch with this unique essence of the divine. The birth of the baby symbolizes a couple of things, and that is, it symbolizes, I would call it the awareness of three states. It is innocence, vulnerability, and humility. That's what the Christ child represents. And we're calling it the spirit of innocence. Now, the definition of innocence is freedom from guilt and not to acquaint ourselves with evil. And what I would call blameless. If you're blameless, then you're not guilty. If you're not guilty, you're innocent. Now, let's take a look at this spiritually, because a lot of you say, wait, hold on. I'm not innocent. I've been around the block a few times. I've been there and back and probably wrote a book on it. I'm not innocent. That's not what I'm talking about. Remember now, I'm looking at it spiritually. So innocence now comes from the recognition of the presence of God, or the presence of love that's within us and is everywhere, because the opposite of judgment is love. And so once we incorporate love into our life, judgment then takes on another role. Judgment then points the way to what needs to be healed. Judgment is in us, is a place that's hurting, that needs some love. And so once we love that, judgment is removed and a whole new awakening takes place. It's called innocence. Now, innocence isn't the same as being naive. It isn't like hiding your head in the sand. Innocence is not a spiritual bypass where you're just going to ignore life and say, oh, I'm innocent. And then you go out and commit a crime and say, oh, I'm innocent. No, it's not about that. This innocence takes a look at all of that and then lovingly heal it so that we can get back to our original state of being, and that is innocent, like a babe. Remember, innocence is not ignorance. Ignorance is not what we're doing. We're talking about awareness. Love now gives us a new awareness. And in that awareness, we'll see that the divine is everywhere. Through innocence, we have what I would call a beginner's mind. It is a place in which we are open, clear, free of judgment. And we can be open now to allow love to do what I would call a cosmic reset. And this is a quotation that I'd like for you to remember. We are preparing the way by being a new creation, a born anew in love in every moment. This is innocence. So breathe that in. Though even though you say, on a human level, I've done this and I've done that, I've got it, and you did, and you're guilty on a three-dimensional human level. I'm not on that level. I'm on this mystical spiritual level where the truth is your soul is innocent. You are an innocent child of God. Get to that state of awareness, and we can start ushering in a new way. It's called the Christ. Now the next one is vulnerability. We prepare the way with our own openness and vulnerability. Being vulnerable is really a negative label. I would say in this 21st century way of being, no one raises a hand and say, oh, I want to be vulnerable. I mean, let's look at it. We don't even want our computers, our electronics, to be vulnerable to a virus. We are going through a pandemic because our immune system has been vulnerable to this virus and everything that goes on. So in other words, we don't want any unauthorized access to our computers or to our bodies because then we're vulnerable. Once again, I'm going on a mystical level. What I am saying is like Brene Brown, who is an American author, lecturer, and I heard about her on the TED Talks. I invite you to go and check her out. She talks about the intolerance of invulnerability, and she's made that her life's work. So Brene Brown, I guess her research has really awakened something that a lot of us didn't know, that if we are, I would say, hold up this wall of invulnerability, it has devastating results of just the opposite of what we're trying to do. In summation, subtracting vulnerability subtracts the part of our human beingness from life. Remember now, this is an upside down experience when we look at it, things mystically. And vulnerability, we're calling it now an incubator of all of the good things. Vulnerability, we're able to experience love, belonging, creativity to its fullest. The only way we get there is through vulnerability. When I was growing up, I used to listen to the radio, and it was this disc jockey by the name of Soul Papa, the Bebopper. He called himself the prognosticator of love. And he used to have this saying that it is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And I thought that he created it, but he didn't. He got that from an English poet during the Victorian era by the name of Alfred Lloyd Tennyson. He came up with that, but it is true, and that it is, look, our soul once and I being once it has known love, it takes on a different aspects on life that enriches us beyond compare. And if our soul never experiences love, there is a whole level of awareness that is much smaller. And even if we lose the love, it still is a gain. Vulnerability opens us up in all of those areas, including creativity, including deeper relationships. It is potent. Now, I would say if we are able to be vulnerable, I assert you that our life will be potent and powerful. It's not a place of weakness. What it does, it takes us to a higher expression of love. That's vulnerability. And now, we are now ready for our next preparing the way, and that is, believe it or not, humility. Look, the Christ child was born symbolically in a stable. Didn't come in a grand entrance, riding on a stallion or whatever, and he wasn't clothed in riches and all that. Innocent, he was vulnerable and humble. This is our way to awakening. Now we'll take a look at this humility. Now, as I was taking a look at humility, just like vulnerability, who wants to be humble? It was a minister, he gave this talk on humility, and two guys after church decided to have the discussion, and one of them said, I admit, I gotta admit, said, I know a lot of people, they just don't admit their faults. And the other guy said, you know what, I agree, because I would admit mine if I had any. You see, a lot of times we get full of ourselves, and humble is not it. There's a country western song that I like by Mac Davis. It says, "Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you are perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause I get better looking each day." Now, I was taught just the opposite. I was taught, hey, look, humble yourself. Don't think more of yourself. Don't be arrogant. Arrogance is for fools. And it looks like we're on two ends of the spectrum. I want us to get centered in something here. Humility is simply surrendering our will to the divine will, to love's will. To humble is to believe that there's a universal essence, the infinite presence that's in charge of our lives. And when we surrender that to love, then love directs us. Once we surrender to it, it becomes our master. We become one with it. It is only through humbling ourselves. It's almost like a knight shine that's bending one knee to the king, and he's humbling ourselves. And I'm willing to do your bidding. When we're humbling ourselves, we're willing to do the bidding of the universe through love. There is Jesus Christ's teachings in the Beatitudes, which is like the Sermon on the Mount, or the inaugural address. He said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And so being humble and meek means, you know what your prize is? You get everything. Think about that. Now I know our mind gets caught up in this, what it is to be humble. The key is, don't humble yourself to anybody or anything other than love. That's your master. That's your guide. So the celebration of Advent and Christmas now is in full gear, and it doesn't matter if it's Christmas or not by the time you're looking at this. I just want you to know the Lord is coming. The Lord is coming to us. What I mean by this is the divine potent power that's ready to come back in us as us so that we can move in a magnificent way. The path to this is just the opposite. It's turned upside down to what we think. I'm inviting you to be innocent and just to love yourself, and the part that you don't think that you can love, that's the part that you really need to love yourself, to be innocent. Then the next thing is to be vulnerable. Yes, be vulnerable, to be open, so you can receive the guidance and that you will know what it is that you need to be in life. The only way you can do that is to be open and vulnerable, and then be willing to be humble, to humble yourself to the divine. So now, how are we going to do this? Give you a simple thing. We're going to put them all together with this. When someone gives you a compliment, somebody says, you know what? I really like that shirt that you have on. Or your hair looks nice today. Or, you know what? You always make me feel good. Or I just love your smile. Whatever it is, whatever compliment they give you, what I want you to do is say, it is true. Thank you. My soul needed that. Now, what you're doing with this is you are now being innocent and taking that in. You're being vulnerable and letting it come in. And you're being humble. You're not allowing your ego to take charge. You're saying the essence of me can feed off of that. And so instead of when somebody gives you a compliment, what I do is, oh, shucks, no, not me. And I got it. No, I'm not inviting you to walk around, talk about you, all that. What I'm saying is the spirit of you is all of that. So remember, a compliment. So when I say that you are magnificent, I'd like for you to just think to yourself, it is true. Thank you. My soul needed that. You are a magnificent child of God. It is true. Thank you. My soul needed that. And I just want you to remember this statement. Through humility, we discard any false identities around self-aggrandizement or self-deprecation and begin to see ourselves through the eyes of the divine within. So let's fully embrace this I am presence that's within us, that's ready to come forward, is already there. We're now ready to see it and be it. We want to prepare for the Christ that's and make it anew in our hearts. So I'm inviting you to be innocent, to see God everywhere through love. And during this experience, just know that who you are is Christ in expression. It is true. I thank each and every one of you, and God bless you.